If you look at any online lists where the mainline Final Fantasy entries are ranked, chances are that you'll find Final Fantasy II near the very bottom, if not at the bottom of the list. There are a number of reasons given, but the main culprit is usually that weird level up system, or rather, the lack of a level up system, as there are no levels in Final Fantasy II. Instead, stats increase based on usage. If a character casts Thunder a lot, their Thunder spell will improve, their MP pool will get larger, their intelligence and their magic stats will increase, etc. Well, this level up system, and sorry, I'm going to keep calling it that, even though there are no character levels, is often cited, there are a number of other idiosyncrasies that make Final Fantasy II an odd game. There's an ask-learn system for keywords that you have to utilize to progress the plot, learning specific words from NPCs and then saying those words to other NPCs. Magic spells are learned from tomes, items that you can buy or find in dungeons, and characters can only learn up to 16 total spells at a time. And the party composition keeps changing throughout the game. And this is a small one, but it felt very weird to me. Inns now charge you 1 gold per point of HP and MP that you recover there. Like Final Fantasy I, and you can watch my review of that here, I went into the Pixel Remaster of Final Fantasy II only knowing about the game's reputation, never having played it before myself in any of its numerous versions. But, given my extremely positive experience with the Pixel Remaster of Final Fantasy I kept an open mind. What I found was an incredible game that, yes, has a few flaws, but is otherwise a perfect distillation of what I love in Final Fantasy. Now, keep in mind that my views on this game are based solely on my time playing the Pixel Remaster version on Switch. First, let's talk more about that level up system. Yes, it's different, but different doesn't mean bad. As someone who already has an unhealthy obsession with watching a screen full of stats increment upwards slowly, I have to tell you, I found the Final Fantasy II system simultaneously addictive and freeing. It's addictive in the sense that I would spend significant amounts of time focused on shaping my character's stats and abilities. Just a few more battles with Maria casting Toad and it should level up, or I really need to start using Guy's MP more so that his MP pool gets bigger. I beat the final boss. It was a cakewalk, but we'll get to that in a minute. But I've already gone back to my save file to grind some more stats, simply because it's that addictive. There's something about the fact that stats level up individually and not in lumps as part of a character level up that always has me saying, just one more battle. Because the stat growth system is so nebulous and not tied to discrete character levels, there's a sense of freedom to the progression. In standard RPGs, I tend to think in terms of, I need to gain a certain number of levels in this area before moving on to the next area. But that thinking doesn't work in Final Fantasy II because stat growth is more organic. It's kind of hard to put this into words, but as I was playing Final Fantasy II, I didn't care about specific stats. Rather, I just knew when it was time to move on to a new area based on how easy fights had become. And yes, all RPGs should be played that way, I know. But often that character level becomes the sole focus of whether or not I'm ready for a new area. At least for me. Now, those of you who have played Final Fantasy II know that the system is easily broken. I suspected it was possible, but I didn't realize how easy it was to break it, even without knowing exactly what I was doing. I put shields on a couple of characters early on, and realized that those characters were evading most attacks. And because of my aforementioned unhealthy obsession with watching a screen full of numbers increment, I immediately wanted to see how far I could push this. Turns out, pretty far. As the axiom goes, you can't hurt what you can't hit. I also gave Firion the Blood Sword for the entirety of the late game. Initially, I did this for the HP drain effect. but I soon realized how much damage it did to bosses. If you want to cheese the final boss of Final Fantasy II, give your sword user the blood sword, seriously. And if you want to cheese all the other bosses, cast Toad on them. Watching powerful Final Fantasy staple bosses slink away as frogs in the first turn of a battle is both hilarious and satisfying. The ask-learn system for story progression was strange at first, but ultimately it ends up being functionally equivalent to Final Fantasy I's "you must have this item to proceed" mechanics. Perhaps the thing that was different that bugged me the most was the constantly shifting fourth party member. Now, granted, I've played other Final Fantasy games that do this, but usually at some point in the story in these other games, you get access to the full roster. Not here. I can't tell you how many times I tried to add Layla back in my party in the late game. I don't understand the logic behind this rotating fourth party member. Some characters leave your party, only to return later, and then leave again. But beyond that, the story is actually pretty good. Scratch that. It's great, especially considering the era it's from. Compared to Final Fantasy I's narrative of generic protagonists on a series of fetch quests, Final Fantasy II introduces a story with complex characters and narrative development. There's an evil empire, fallen princes, tragic sacrifices. Seriously, the story is an upgrade on one's in every respect. And this game introduced many series staples: bombs, Malboros, behemoths, and of course, chocobos. Really though, the heart of why I enjoyed Final Fantasy II is that it's beautiful. Everything from the sprites to the scenery to the music is just an absolute delight. So much heart and love went into these environments, into this score. Every second I spent in the game was aesthetically pleasing. I'm a real sucker for beautiful games. I will overlook a multitude of sins if a game features gorgeous art and enchanting music, and Final Fantasy II has both. I mean, listen to this. This is an absolute banger. If you're a Final Fantasy II hater, well, this video probably didn't change your mind. Most people who ranked this game so low have no doubt played earlier iterations that soured their opinion of the game. I can admit that if I had played the NES ROM of this game, I no doubt would have approached it very differently, with a completely different attitude, and had an entirely different experience. But I went into it expecting to love it as much as I loved the first Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster, and I ended up loving it more. If you've never played this game before, and you like old school RPGs, the Pixel Remaster is worth a try. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.